դեսպան Պյոտր Սվիտալսկիի մամուլի ասուլիսը նվիրված Հայաստան-Եվրամիություն հարաբերություններին եւ Հայաստանում դեսպանի դիվանագիտական առաքելության ամփոփմանը։ Շնորհակալ ենք պարոն դեսպան մեր հավերը ընդունելու եւ այստեղ գտնվելու համար։ Ես սկզբի համար խոսք փոխանցեմ պարոն դեսպանին, մի քանի խոսք ասելու եւ ամփոփելու համար այս տարիները, որ պարոն դեսպանը աշխատել է Հայաստանում որպես Եվրամիության պատվիրակության ղեկավար դեսպան, այնուհետև արդեն կանցնենք հարց ու պատասխանին։ Շնորհակալ եմ պարոն դեսպան, եւս մեկ անգամ խոսքը ձեզ եմ փոխանցում։
Thank you. Good morning, dear friends from media. Thank you very much for coming. We have invited you to this press conference essentially to thank you for 4 years of very good cooperation. I should express my deep gratitude to you, to the media community of Armenia, for your very productive cooperation with us. I have enjoyed it. I'm very thankful to you about the European Union or me personally, but what matters is to be always professional. Of course, I believe that most of the time we have enjoyed as the European Union a very supportive coverage, a very friendly coverage. And I'm really appreciative of this. So my message to you, ending my assignment to Armenia, is the media community of Armenia, protect your freedom, expose fake news, make a distinctive difference between facts and opinions, and hate speech. Questions that you really wanted to ask, but for different reasons you haven't had the opportunity. So now use it, because it's your last opportunity. Thank you so much.
Շնորհակալություն պարոն դեսպան։ Մի քանի հարց սկզբից ես կուղեմ, այնուհետև խոսք փոխանցեմ հարգարժան մեր լրագրողներին, մեր գործընկերներին։ Պարոն դեսպան, հարցը առաջինը, որ այն կարող ընկանեն Եվրամիության աջակցությունը, ությունը հայտարարում է այն մասին, որ այս բարեփոխումների նպատակն է ստեղծել անկախ, իսկապես անկախ դատական համակարգ։ Այն գործողությունները, որ տեղի են ունենում Հայաստանում, աշնը գնահատում։
The European Union has expressed very strong support to the reform efforts of Armenia in the field of judiciary. This strong support has been communicated to our Armenian partners at different levels, starting at the very highest level. You will all recall the visit of President Tusk to Armenia. You remember what he said at the press conference, which I believe also reflected the conversation that President Tusk had with your highest officials, the Prime Minister and the President. The European Union is determined to support the efforts of the Armenian side to reform judiciary, to build an independent, truly independent, clean, political support, technical support, and also financial support. I would like to use this opportunity to clarify some of the publications. I will not name now the news outlets, not to give it too much publicity, but some of the facts were unfortunately distorted. The European Union is ready to provide a very sizable financial support to the reforms in the field of judiciary. This was discussed several days ago during a very important mission from Brussels. We had here colleagues from different branches of the Commission and also the External Action Service, and they discussed the issues with various interlocutors, not only in the government, but also the Supreme Judicial Council and other partners. These discussions are very constructive, and our support is, I believe, very, very important in financial terms. We are talking about two batches, two tranches of support. The immediate support, available already from this autumn, to support the immediate plans of the government in the field of judiciary. And we are also talking about a multi-million support extending into the future, next several years, 3-4 years, in the framework of budget support envelope. And I should stress with satisfaction that our discussions with the government, Minister in Justice in particular, have been very productive, very constructive. And we are looking forward to the concrete plans that the government is now discussing and outlining. And we will be there to help. We will be there to support. As declared many times, the European Union doesn't impose any model of reform. And indeed, in Europe, there is no single model of well-functioning judiciary. There are different models, and there are still problems, even among the family of the European Union member countries, as you are very well aware of. So the European Union is not trying to impose anything, but the European Union is ready to provide technical support. We are ready to mobilize experts who would share with the Armenian side the experience of other reform efforts. If Armenia is interested in a particular country where deep reforms in the judiciary were conducted, we are ready to mobilize experts who would come to Armenia and say what was good, what was not so good, so that Armenia should not repeat the mistakes of other countries, so that Armenia could learn from good experience of other countries. And we are ready to, as I said, organize the technical support in any field that the Armenian partners would feel necessary. But as I said, the shape of the reform process should be decided in a sovereign way by the Armenian authorities. What we stress in our conversation is that this vision of reforms should be comprehensive, should be done or drafted in a systemic way, and it should be discussed very widely, not only with the political spectrum of Armenia, but also civil society and experts. We are aware that such discussions are taking place, and in particular, the civil society have been invited for a number of meetings to discuss this concept of reforms in Armenia. But this concept of reforms, as I said, should be the result of Armenian efforts. And we believe, as the European Union, that Armenia has enough people with political wisdom, with knowledge, with expertise, with everything what you need to develop such a comprehensive and long-term and deep vision of reforms. Thank you.
Շնորհակալություն։ Պարոն դեսպան, երկրորդ հարցը հենց այս խնդրին է նաև վերաբերում, բայց արդեն քննադատություններին։ Ընդդիմադիրները պնդում են, որ այնինչ կատարվում է դատաիրավական համակարգում, հատկապես խոսքը վեթինգի ինստիտուտի կամ անցումային արդարացիության մեխանիզմների ներդրման մասով, նրանք ասում են ընդդիմադիրները, որ այս կերպ իշխանությունները, այսօրվա իշխանությունները փորձում են ստեղծել իրենց հպատակ կամ իրենց ենթակա դատաիրավական համակարգ, որքանով եք դուք ընդհանրապես ինչպես կարձագանքեիք այս գնահատականներին, արդյոք խոսքը ոչ այնքան ուրեմն ոչ թե անկախ, այլ կախյալ դատական համակարգի ստեղծման է ուղղված այս ջանքերը, այս անգամ ոչ թե հանրապետական իշխանությունից, այլ նոր իշխանություններից, հա, եւ որքանով են համակողմանի այդ ջանքերը, դուք նշեցիք, որ պետք է լինեն այդ ջանքերը համակողմանի, որ բոլորի կողմից ընկալելի, խնդրեմ։
If you recall the statements made by the European Union Delegation and the embassies of our member states in Armenia, you will have all the elements of our position. Let me repeat that we consider that this reform should be done in accordance with the Armenian constitution. And I believe that's a very important element in all these discussions. And that this reform effort should be done in accordance with international standards. We are talking about, in particular, the Council of Europe standards, and I believe the Armenian government has been in very close touch with our partners in the Council of Europe. The minister went to Strasbourg. Experts, at least 2 delegations I can recall in the past 4 weeks, came to Armenia to discuss issues with the Armenian partners. So this dialogue is taking place, and I believe it's very important. When we say independent judiciary, we mean truly independent judiciary, which is protected from the unnecessary and unduly influence from other branches of power. The idea of separate branches of power, 3 branches of power, judicial, executive, legislative, is very dear to the European Union. And for us, the independence of judiciary is one of the foundations of a credible and effective judicial system. And I have no reasons to believe, from the many hours of discussions that we have had in the last weeks, I refer to the missions, Council of Europe, European Union missions. I was there, I could witness the discussions. I have no reason to worry that there is any intention to compromise the independence of judiciary in Armenia. And as I said, for us in our discussions with the Armenian counterparts, the notion of independence is probably the most important. Let me recall that the European Union, we have started with Armenia what we called policy dialogue in the field of judiciary. And we are discussing these issues, and we will continue to discuss these issues. I believe in autumn, we will have another session of this policy dialogue, and we will continue our discussions.
Շնորհակալություն։ Եվս մեկ հարց այս փուլում իմ կողմից, այնուհետև գործընկերները ինք փոխանցեմ։ Պարոն դեսպան, երբ Հայաստանում տեղի ունեցավ իշխանափոխությունը, տեղի ունեցավ թավշյա դրանից հետո քաղաքացիական հասարակության ուրեմն կառույցները հանդես եկան հայտարարություններով, նաև նշելով եւ ոչ միայն քաղաքացիական հասարակության, որ պետք է Հայաստան-Եվրամիություն ուրեմն կապերը վերանայել եւ վերարժևորել այն իմաստով, որ ավելի պետք է սերտացնել այդ կապերը, որովհետեւ նոր իշխանություն է, նոր իրավիճակ է, որը փորձում է ռեֆորմներ իրականացնել, եվրոպական այսպես ստանդարտներին համահունչ այդ ամեն ինչ իրականացնել։ Արդյոք կա նման հնարավորություն, թե կնքված Հայաստան-ԵՄ համապարփակ եւ ընդլայնված գործընկերության համաձայնագիրը փոփոխության ենթակա չէ, այսինքն այն անհրաժեշտ չէ փոփոխել, այն բավարար հիմք է, որպեսզի Հայաստան ու Եվրամիությունը զարգացնեն իրենց հարաբերությունները։ Խնդրեմ։
Let me repeat what President Tusk said in Yerevan when visiting Armenia. Our assessment is that we have now with Armenia excellent relationship. And all the factors that you normally take into account assessing the level of relationship speak in favor of such a statement. First of all, we have a very intense and friendly political dialogue starting at the highest level. I mentioned the visit of President Tusk, which I believe was a very important event, but there were visits of Prime Minister Pashinyan to Brussels. There were meetings between Armenia foreign minister and EU officials on several occasions. We have a number of technical missions at different levels coming to Armenia, and also a lot of dialogue taking place in Brussels. Secondly, SEPA is being now put into the implementation phase. You remember last June we had a partnership council in Brussels where the Armenian side presented the roadmap for implementation, a very detailed and a very ambitious document, which, according to all the statements that we have heard, is treated very seriously by the Armenian government. And we are now discussing with the Armenian side concrete ways in which the European Union can support the implementation of the roadmap. I invite you all to review the process of implementation, to monitor it. We are very glad that the National Assembly of Armenia took a very active role, that the European Integration Commission had a session to discuss the implementation of SEPA. And I believe the Armenian public should have a close eye on the implementation process. The discussions that we are having is that the line ministries of Armenia are now preparing very concrete action within the framework of SEPA roadmap, and that's very good. We have also, which I believe is very symbolic, substantially increased the level of financial support for development of Armenia, development assistance. As you know, Armenia received 25 million euros in the framework of the so-called Umbrella Fund. And Umbrella Fund is a discretionary fund. It is decided exclusively on the basis of performance. And Armenia can be proud that the level of Umbrella Fund for Armenia is higher than for Georgia. It sends a message. I wish Armenia that next year's will be equally rewarding in terms of the size of the Umbrella Fund. But Umbrella Fund is a recognition of the reforms that Armenia has undertaken in the past period. In particular, the elections that were held beginning December last year. But not only that. So if you put everything together, you can say that our cooperation between the European Union and Armenia is on the right track. I believe that Armenian people appreciate it. We published recently a public opinion poll, which was conducted, it is conducted every year in our Eastern Partnership partners. And 92% of Armenians expressed the view that relations with the European Union are on a good track, that they are developing well. And this high level of support for this development is something. I think people have a natural instinct to understand the logic of things. If you remember, there are some other good figures. High level of trust towards the European Union. More than 60% of Armenians trust the European Union. More than 60% of Armenians have a positive image of the European Union. More than 70% of Armenians are aware of our financial support. Although here in brackets, I would say that probably only a minority of Armenians is aware that the European Union and our member states are the biggest donor to Armenia. And we are probably the only donor which in the recent months has increased so dramatically the level of support. I stop here, and I would like to ask colleagues sitting in the last row, if they are not interested in what I'm saying now, they could find another room to continue the discussion.
Շնորհակալություն։ Պարոն դեսպան, հարց, խնդրեմ, ներկայացեք ուղեք ձեր հարցը։ Միկրոֆոն պետք է բարձրախոս փոխանցենք։ Փոխանցեք, խնդրում եմ։
Անի Ավետյան, ժամը լրատվական, Արմենիա հեռուստատեսություն։ Պարոն դեսպան, խնդրում եմ նշեք Հայաստանի կառավարության վերջին 2 տարիների գլխավոր սխալները, որոնք նկատել եք հենց թեկուզ Եվրամիության հետ հարաբերություններում, եւ խնդրում եմ նշեք, քանի որ դուք հեռացող դեսպանն եք արդեն Եվրամիության, թե որոնք են եղել ձեր սխալները այստեղ Հայաստանում աշխատանքի, եթե կհամաձայնեք, որ այդպիսիք եղել են։ Շնորհակալություն։
Շնորհակալություն։
Concerning my performance, I leave you to judge to what extent I was successful, how many mistakes I have committed. We are all human, and it's part of our nature to make mistakes. Although when I look back and I find my job here very rewarding, my assessment of these 4 years is very simple. In professional terms and also in human terms, it was a very rewarding time of joy, professional joy, in serious terms. And I believe that if you ask about my judgments, I believe more or less I was right. Sometimes I was wrong, but mainly on the level of detail. For a diplomat, it's very difficult, even now, in the final weeks of my mission, to reveal all the, say, sides of our activities which is not visible to the public. Although from day one of my mission, I tried to be as transparent as possible, it will not surprise you if I say that there were still plenty of activities, plenty of conversations, plenty of papers which are not available to the public eye and to you as journalists. And that's natural. Probably it's too early to sum up everything that has happened in Armenia on my watch during the past 4 years. And this period, as you can remember, has been very eventful. There was the Velvet Revolution, but there were other important events, including the Sasnatsrer crisis, 2017. There was the April War, to mention just a few events which, for any diplomat stationed in Armenia, has been a time, a case of challenge. But overall, I feel satisfied, even if I was wrong here or there, but I believe that traveling now in Armenia and meeting Armenians, I believe that they appreciate what we have done, me and my team, during the past years, very important years for Armenia. I'm now thinking whether to promise you anything after I leave Armenia, a kind of kiss and tell story about my activities. Probably not. Maybe I will disappoint you, but I'm not planning to write anything or to disclose anything. But as I said, for me, this period in professional and also in very personal terms has been a very satisfying period, very satisfying. Good, let's stop here. First, you should be the people who provide the review of the activities of the government, not me. Again, I will have to be very diplomatic, but I believe that personally, what happened in Armenia last year is something very important. And the legacy of what happened is something what you all as Armenians should protect. Some good things have happened already, and I mentioned them in my public statements. First, the decisive progress towards democracy. The elections. Elections are very important. Of course, democracy is not only about elections, but the first step is always good elections. And Armenia had, I believe, unprecedented level of democracy in the past elections. But you have to go further. I don't want now to turn it into a lecture and to tell you what are the other elements of a democratic system. But it's all starts with elections, and you made this first step successfully. You can be proud of what happened in Armenia last December. The second issue, the fight against corruption. Armenia has shown a very strong determination, very strong political will to combat corruption. And as I said, strong political will is a condition sine qua non. Is something without which no progress is possible to combat corruption. But you have it. You have made this very important step. But this political will has to be sustained through institutions, laws, and public attitude. And I can say now, these next steps are being taken. The creation of institutions, and I know your government has very concrete plans to establish such institutions, to pass new laws, which is very good. The third important achievement of Armenia in the past several months is to end the feeling of impunity that some people in the past felt that they were above the law. I think what is important for ordinary citizens of Armenia, and I'm sure they appreciate it, is that this feeling that there were people who were above the law or behaved themselves as people above the law is over. But as we have discussed today at this press conference, ending impunity is the first step. Equality under the law is the first step. Now you have to build independent, strong, clean, and effective judiciary, which is a very serious task. So I can go on and on, but any government in the world is not free from missteps, mistakes. The most important thing is to recognize them, to admit them, and to correct them. And if you, as the media, are taking up very seriously your role to help your authorities, to help people with authority in Armenia, to see the mistakes, to recognize them, to admit them, and to correct them, you can be safe about your future. But your government needs free media, objectively reporting, without bias, but simply performing in a professional way its role as the fourth branch of power. Good luck.
Շնորհակալություն, խնդրում եմ հետ փոխանցեք միկրոֆոնը Ազատություն ռադիոկայան։
Շնորհակալություն, պարոն դեսպան, ցավոք հիմա մենք չենք կարող իրար տեսնել, բայց հարցը փորձ եմ ուղղել ձեզ։ Երբ այստեղ էր Եվրամիության խորհրդի ղեկավար Տուսկը, նա հայտարարեց, ասաց, որ Հայաստանին այս տարի ցուցաբերվող օժանդակությունը, եթե չեմ սխալվում, 2 անգամ ավելացել է 19 թվականին, սակայն պարոն Տուսկը թիվ չնշեց։ Եթե ձեզ մոտ հիմա կա այդ թիվը, խնդրում եմ նշեք, եւ այսպեսի մի հարց հեղափոխությունից հետո շատերը Հայաստանում ակնկալում էին, որ մասնավորապես Եվրամիության աջակցությունը կլինի մոտավորապես նույն մակարդակի, ինչ որ մենք տեսանք Վրաստանի դեպքում վարդերի հեղափոխությունից հետո, սակայն նման ավելի օգնություն կարծես թե աջակցություն կարծես թե մենք աջակցության ականատեսը չեղանք։ Ինչ է սա նշանակում եւ արդյոք առաջիկայում հնարավոր է փոխվի այս առումով Եվրամիության դիրքորոշումը։ Շնորհակալություն։
The figures. What President Tusk referred to is the following. In the past years, the average level of our annual support to Armenia within the so-called bilateral programming was 35 million euros. Let me stress, we are talking about bilateral programming inscribed into our annual action plans. For 2019, this level of support will reach 70 million euros. And as I said, this is only the bilateral part, because there is a multilateral channel, Eastern Partnership, and other funds that the European Union is using to support our neighbors. Here I'm referring only to the bilateral, so-called bilateral envelope. So we are moving from 35 to 70 million for 2019. We are in very constructive discussions with the government where to put this money. I believe by the end of the year, we will formalize all the necessary papers. I will not disclose now which direction we are heading, but this money, this 70 million euros, will find its way to very concrete projects. So these are the figures, but let me use your question also to inform our friends from the media community that we are moving very well forward in finding the best implementation mode for the list of priority projects submitted by Prime Minister Pashinyan in Brussels when he visited Brussels in March. You remember the list? I can report to you my collaborators from the EU delegation and my colleagues from Brussels have had very long discussions with the Armenian counterparts in the government, and we are moving forward to find the best way of financing these priority projects and implementing them. I don't want to go into detail unless you are interested, you have any specific questions on any of these priority projects, but I want to tell you very good progress. So that's about the figures. Concerning our level of support. The European Union is very transparent, and indeed what we are talking now about with your government is to think in terms of future planning. The European Union will be starting now very, I would say, technical already discussions on the next multi-annual financial framework. We know what we have available till 2021, but what will happen after 2021 will be now discussed in Brussels. And it is very important for Armenia that this level of support, which for 2019 is unprecedented, is sustained in the future. What are the factors? First, the pace of reforms. As I mentioned, this year Armenia benefited from the umbrella fund in a big way, but what will be the next year, whether the Armenian reforms will have the same level of recognition in Brussels, is an open question. If the pace of reforms in Armenia is maintained, then my reply will be yes. You can count on a comparable level of support. The second, of course, element is your plans. Because, as I tried to explain many months ago, the European Union is working on the basis of concrete plans, doable things. If we have from Armenia a very, say, precise list of needs, then we can tune the financial support of the European Union well to the needs. And we have to look forward, as I mentioned. We have to have a vision extending into the future. The third is absorption capacity. We need the funds which are already available, well used. You probably all remember the figure from last year, maybe it was the same time, July 2019, when I mentioned the figure of 150 million euros unused money, money which was committed to Armenia, but for different reasons was not used before. And if Armenia is interested in the high level of support that we are offering this year, in the coming years, this absorption capacity should be at a good level. meaning the funds committed should be used. I am looking into the future with optimism, because the discussions so far with our partners in several line ministries are giving us the right reasons to feel optimistic.
Շնորհակալություն, խնդրեմ ձեր հարցը։ Ահա, հետո դուք ներողություն։
Բարև ձեզ, հանրային հեռուստաընկերություն, Խաչատրյան Արթուր, պարոն դեսպան, եթե կարելի է երկու հարց։ Առաջին հարցս վերաբերում է վիզաների ազատականացմանը։ Հիմա Հայաստանը ըստ էության ասում է մի ճանապարհ, որը որ ժամանակին անցել է հարևան Վրաստանը, եւ նկատի ունենալով Վրաստանի փորձը, արդյոք կարող է այդ փորձը բացասական ազդեցություն ունենալ բանակցությունների ընթացքին, եւ երկրորդ հարցը վերաբերում է նախագահ Տուսկի հայտարարությանը, որը որ արվել է Բաքվում Ադրբեջանի տարածքային ամբողջականության վերաբերյալ հայտարարություն, որը որ բավականին անհանգստություն պատճառեց թե Հայաստանում, թե Ղարաբաղում, Ստեփանակերտում, ինչով էր պայմանավորված նման հայտարարությունը, չէ որ Եվրամիությունը միշտ կարծես թե ձգտել է պահպանել այդ բալանսը հավասարակշռությունը։ Շնորհակալություն։
Good. Let me confirm that the position of the European Union on the settlement of the Nagorno-Karabakh remains the same, and it is a position based on certain fundamental principles. First of all, we believe that there is no military solution to the conflict, that the conflict can be settled only through peaceful means. Secondly, we support the mediation activities of the Minsk Group, and the European Union is extending its full support, political support, to the efforts of the Minsk Group. And nothing changed in our position. We have stated this position many times, and I believe that there is no reason to fear that the European Union is changing its position. So this is to comment on various speculations and statements made in some of the media. There is no change in the position of the European Union concerning the settlement of the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict. And I believe that you will find plenty of common statements, including the provisions in SEPA, which will explain to you any misgivings that you may have. So please don't speculate. The European Union is very, very consistent, even if sometimes this position is expressed in different, say, words, in different phrases, but the position is the same. Trust us. What was the first?
Վիզաների ազատականացման կապված։
There was something. Yes. I think I deliberately pretended not to hear the question. I have nothing to report to you. I can tell you that President Tusk had a long conversation also on this topic during his visit to Armenia. The Armenian side knows very well what to do to accelerate the decision to open the visa liberalization dialogue. And I know that the Armenian side is in touch with the Georgian counterparts to learn from the experiences of Georgia before, during, and after the visa liberalization dialogue. And all phases are very important. So the Georgian experience can be used by Armenia. Otherwise, you must show patience and continue your efforts, because nothing will happen without your efforts. not only political or lobbying efforts, but the efforts of ordinary Armenians. If you do not violate the provisions for your travel to Schengen area, to other European Union countries, if you return in time, if you do not seek asylum, if you do not profit from free medical services, and so on and so forth, everything will go into the right direction. So let's hope. You know my position, you know my support, and I can tell you it will not change after the conclusion of my mission. I will be using every possibility to argue for the visa liberalization with Armenia, because I believe that this is very important for Europe to show that Europe is something which binds us together, that we belong to one family. And the best way to substantiate all these declarations and nice words is to simply let people, ordinary people, enjoy Europe. You can count on me. I was very strong supporter before I came to Armenia, and I will be a supporter after I leave Armenia.
Շնորհակալություն, խնդրեմ, այստեղ հարց հետո։
Factor TV. Mr. Ambassador, you talked about the freedom of media. Now, I want to ask you, have you noticed any changes after the Velvet Revolution? Is media free, unbiased, and is it more transparent than it was before, in the times of previous authorities? And what changes have you noticed in work of media?
Tell me your opinion, and then I will tell you whether I disagree or agree. Well, I believe media and the freedom of media is very important. And we, as the European Union, we have launched an effort to support you, to support the media community. There will be new projects, new calls for proposals announced by the European Union, because we believe that in the post-revolutionary period, one of the important elements of democratization of your society is to build a new environment for media, independent media. It will not happen soon. It needs good regulatory basis, good legislation. In particular, I believe television, but also other elements of the free media are very important. It needs economic viability, which I believe without which nothing will happen. How to achieve it is a big conversation, long story. All I can say now is that the European Union is determined, for the first time in many years, to allocate funds and to support the building of a very free environment for the media, an independent environment for the media in the coming months. We will be doing it through our regular funds. We know that the European Endowment for Democracy has put media as one of the priorities for Armenia, which I believe is also very good. So that's us. Concerning the assessment of the media, we of course follow very closely the assessments done by independent institutions, including Freedom House. And if you look at the recent report of Freedom House, Armenia has improved significantly. I congratulate you. We also follow other assessments. You can read our assessment of the media if you wish in our partnership report for the last year. You will have very official statement. To repeat it in simple terms, I believe that after the revolution, the level of freedom has increased. We are, of course, aware of the critical statements made by the media people, some of them themselves, but the general atmosphere for the functioning of media has improved. But as I said, what Armenia needs is the improvement in the regulatory field. It needs better sustainability in economic terms of the media, and so on and so forth.
Միկրոֆոնով խնդրում եմ։
Do you think that the economic problems that some media have can change the way they perceive the news? I mean, if they don't have the economic independence, can this hinder them providing people with unbiased news?
No, I don't want to go into details, even if I can have a view, because I have dealt with media for many years. And I have many friends in many countries working in the media field. So I know the challenges, in particular when it comes to economic sustainability of media outlets. There is a link between, say, economy and independence everywhere. Armenia is not unique. But simply I don't want to bore you now with my analytical findings. I believe that the European Union will be there for you to discuss it with you and also to support you in practical terms to solve these problems. That's all I can say. And the rest is in your hands. I started my press conference today by a direct appeal to you. Protect your freedoms, expose fake news, combat hate speech, separate opinions from the facts.
Շնորհակալություն, ձեր հարցը, հետո ձեր հարցը ու ավարտում ենք, խնդրեմ։
Պարոն դեսպան, Հայաստանում քաղաքական փոփոխությունների օրերին մեդիա դաշտում, ինչպես նաև սոցիալական հարթակներում տեսակետներ հնչեցին, որ դուք կողմնապահություն եք անում, Եվրամիության ամենակողմնապահ դեսպանն եք։ Ինչպես կմեկնաբանեք։
I have to be diplomatic. We, of course, follow media very closely. Me personally. Today you have technology to overcome the language difficulty. So I follow the media. And my main point is how professional you are. And I can say most of the time, most of the media outlets are very professional. And I said it at the very outset, I recognize your professionalism, despite the difficulties. So the rest, let's have coffee one day and discuss.
Շնորհակալություն։ Խնդրում եմ հետ փոխանցեք միկրոֆոնը առավոտ եւ վերջին հարցը։
Պարոն դեսպան, հաշվի առնելով, որ ձեր առաքելությունը ամփոփվում է, ինձ հետաքրքրում է ամենամեծ հիասթափությունը, եթե կարող եք այս պահին նշել, որ ապրել եք Հայաստանում, կլինի ծրագրերի իրականացման առումով, թե այլ առումով, եւ ամենամեծ զարմանքը, հիացմունքը, որ ապրել եք Հայաստանում, ձեր գործունեության ընթացքում եւ մի փոքր հարցել, տարիներ առաջ դուք զարմանք եք հայտնում, որ Հայաստանում բանակի գուլպաները կարող են համարվել հույժ գաղտնի տեղեկատվություն։ Այս առումով թափանցիկ աշխատելու առումով դուք փոփոխություններ նկատում եք պաշտպանության նախարարության եւ առհասարակ կառավարության աշխատանքում։ Շնորհակալություն։
Thank you. You remember everything I said.
It's our job.
Look, my general perception, my biggest appreciation goes to people of Armenia, the ordinary guys that I have met, all across Armenia. As you know, I have traveled, I believe, more than any other ambassador before me. I have met many wonderful people, in particular the young guys, and they were the most important part of my diplomatic work. And I owe them, in the first place, my big thanks. These ordinary guys who have worked with us, implementing our projects, who have received me, who have talked to me at different occasions, in particular, the young Armenians. And from my early days here in Armenia, there were two groups who impressed me most and who I thought would be the people who will make difference. These were the young Armenians and Armenian women. And I believe they didn't disappoint me. They were the driver for change, including during the events of April last year. Young people, in particular, young women who were demanding the change. So this was the most important part of my diplomatic mission, to communicate with them. And I believe that I succeeded. Surprises, there were many surprises. Some of them were sad surprises. Some of them were joyful surprises. But probably it's too early for me to speak about them. But yes, I was surprised on some occasions, sometimes sadly, disappointingly, but most of the time positively. But still, I have to stick to my diplomatic role and don't disclose too much. Good. The biggest surprise maybe came from my team during the revolution. They were really behaving as the best citizens of Armenia, and that was for me very rewarding. My immediate collaborators, my immediate co-workers from the EU delegation. And again, let me say it openly, although I said it already on a TV show, but I will repeat it so that you don't think it was part of a show, that I have worked here in Armenia with the best team ever in my diplomatic career. Without them, we wouldn't be so successful, and I believe we were successful. Thank you, Anahit. You represent now your colleagues. And it's very important. And I can tell you, the best team ever. And I have been a boss for many years. So I have had this managerial responsibility for many years, and I have worked with many teams, including in different international organizations. If you look at my CV, you will realize that I was a boss, not a big boss, but still a boss in the Council of Europe, in the Organization for Security and Cooperation, in the Foreign Ministry. So I know what I'm saying. But for me, the most rewarding part of my mission here was meeting with Armenians, ordinary Armenians. I, of course, am very grateful to the authorities, the functionaries, because they are my main interlocutors, but nevertheless, I hope that they will not be disappointed if I tell that I valued the daily contacts with ordinary Armenians as the most precious part of my job. And I'm grateful because Armenians have a number of assets which make you special, which make mission of a diplomat in your country very rich. What are the assets? First of all, You are smart people. I have always had this amazing feeling that I'm talking to people whose IQ is higher than me, which doesn't happen very often, if you can imagine. But here in Armenia, I have met so many intelligent, cute, and really talented people that I cannot recall any other country where the frequency of such meetings was so high. Secondly, you are very nice people. Your manners are very polite. You are very hospitable. And this is something what normally every tourist visiting Armenia would tell you, but I'm telling you professionally. It starts with your authorities. Your authorities before and after the revolution are very accessible, which I believe for a diplomat is unbelievably important. But the most important thing that ordinary Armenians, wherever you go, to a restaurant, to a shop, to a museum, anywhere, they are friendly and they are hospitable. They treat foreigners very nicely. Third element, you are cultured people with this, strong feeling that you belong to an ancient civilization, which for me is very important. I envied it you because I believe this continuity of culture, of civilization, makes you very special. That you preserved it despite bad history, unfortunate developments, but you stood up to this challenge of being yourself and protecting your identity, which I believe is very important. Please, these are not simply compliments, and I take Anahit as a witness that I'm saying it also when you switch off your cameras and your microphones. And this is something you can be proud of. Don't change, be yourself. The last question.
Now you mentioned about the importance of women in bringing changes in the country. My question is, do you think the rights of women in Armenia are protected well enough? And during the past months, the ratification of Istanbul Convention is highly discussed. Do you think it's really important when it comes to protection of rights of women in Armenia?
Look, my diagnosis from the very early days of my mission was very, transparent. I said women are the most untapped, the most unused potential of this country. And I have spent a lot of time meeting people, young women in particular, encouraging them to be more engaged in politics, to be more engaged in business, in various fields of activities. There is still a big distance to go. If you take politics, too few women in your government, too few women in your parliament, too few women as mayors, although there is already a change. So I encourage women to be more active in the political field. I understand sometimes it's difficult. 3 years ago, I went to a small village where the mayor was a lady. And I asked her, what should we do to encourage women to be more engaged in public roles? And she told me, build kindergartens. I took it very seriously, and we are doing it right now. The European Union will be supporting development of kindergartens in Armenia as part of our efforts to promote more women engagement in public life. Secondly, business activities. I have attended several events aimed at promoting women in business. We had a program run by our German friends GIZ, and I'm very glad that there are already associations working with women, organized by women, to promote more women engagement in business. There are, of course, issues which will continue to be very important. You mentioned the Istanbul Convention. The European Union is, working with the Armenian government to implement domestic violence. I think combating domestic violence is very important. A law has been adopted, maybe not perfect. Civil society organizations, they want to improve it. But for us, for the European Union, it is very important to operationalize this law. That's why we are working and we are providing funds to make this law operational through the activities of your Ministry of Labour and Social Affairs. And we believe it's very important. It's important for you. There are other aspects where Armenia still has to make an effort. Of course, there will be people who will be trying to reverse this process. There will be people who will use it, unfortunately, for political purposes, sometimes very cynically, because they know that Armenia is a country with very traditional conservative views. My point is the following. I consider myself to be a person with strong family values. And I believe that there is nothing incompatible between being a very strong family man like myself and being dedicated to promoting more women engagement in politics, in combating domestic violence, which is the most dreadful and, I believe, socially disintegrating form of violence. Here in brackets, I will disclose you. For instance, there is a beautiful book which you should read, The Better Angels of Our Nature, by Steven Pinker, where he tries to prove that the level of violence in the past, say, decades is going down. He believes that the falling level of violence is a logic of our development as a human civilization. But he proves that the violence which is the most resistant to this civilizational progress is domestic violence. You can read statistics about even rich and developed countries where the street violence goes down rapidly, but domestic violence persists. And this is the weak point of our human civilization. It's not only a problem of individual countries. So I believe that you have a distance to go, but you're on the right track. We have to stop because I'm losing my voice. Spare me. Thank you so much. Thank you for today and thank you for everything.
Նայելով ձեզ, պարոն դեսպան, եւ վերջում ուզում եմ ուղղակի ասել, որ հանրային լրագրության ակումբի կողմից անակնկալ կա այն փոխանցելու համար խոսքը տրամադրում եմ Սեդա Մուրադյանին, ՀԼԱ-ի տնօրենին։
Շնորհակալություն, պարոն դեսպան, ձեզնից հետո միշտ դժվար է խոսելը։ Հանրային լրագրության ակումբի ողջ թիմի անունից ես ուզում եմ շնորհակալություն հայտնել ձեր առաքելության ընթացքում կատարած աշխատանքի համար եւ մասնավորապես այն տպավորիչ ուշադրության համար, որ դուք մշտապես ձեր առաքելության տարիներին ցուցաբերել եք մարդու իրավունքների եւ հիմնարար ազատությունների պաշտպանության հարցում։ Մեզ համար որպես կազմակերպության, որպես թիմի, մասնավորապես ձեր այդ ուշադրությունը շատ արժեքավոր է եղել եւ եթե դուք եղել եք երբևէ կողմնակալ, ապա միայն հոգուտ մարդու իրավունքների, ինչի համար մենք շնորհակալ ենք ձեզ եւ այս փոքրիկ հիշատակը խնդրում եմ ընդունեք մեր թիմի կողմից։ Ձեզ բոլոր մաղթում ենք հետաքրքիր շարունակություն եւ հուսով ենք, որ Հայաստան դուք նորից կվերադառնաք արդեն որպես տուրիստ։
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Եվ կխնդրենք մի լուսանկար ձեզ հետ մեր թիմով։